The next principle that I really try to practice and follow is a 100% commitment to excellence. Now, oftentimes we all believe that we're 100% committed, but perhaps we're not always 100% committed. Who in the room has any commitments for yourself? And I'll start it off. For example, I'm committed to reading a book, one book every week. I read one book every single week, and I'm committed to doing that. Who in this room has any commitments with yourself? Let's go.
Meditation every morning.
Meditation every morning. You live up to that?
I live up to it.
All right.
Making money.
Making money, Dr. Ray. And if you don't know who this is in the front of the room, this is Dr. Ray, and Dr. Ray makes money. So, but he's committed to that. He's committed to it, and I know for a fact he's committed to it. Anybody else got any commitments, Tanya?
I'm committed to helping others.
Committed
If
to
at the
helping
end of the
others.
day I haven't found someone to help, then I go back out and find somebody, even if it's midnight.
She's committed to helping others. And, you know, in order to be successful, you have to understand that you can't just be interested in something. You have to be committed to it. You can't just be interested in something. You have to be committed. Successful people will understand the importance of making 100% commitment. And a key to success is taking an attitude of no matter what it takes. I will do whatever it takes to win. I think the other night, or actually this past weekend, and I don't know if Javon, he hadn't mentioned it yet. This is the first time I've seen him since the weekend. But it was Saturday night. I sent you an email, didn't I? It was 2:30 in the morning because I was up working. Now, most of my friends at 2:30 in the morning on Saturday night, they were walking out of the bar. But I was sitting in my living room and I was working. I'm committed to excellence. I will do whatever it takes to win. I will sacrifice whatever it takes to win. And when you listen to the warm introduction that Javon was giving you and telling you a little bit about myself, and I recognize a lot of the faces in the room, and there are a few people in the room I don't recognize. And I've been blessed to be able to achieve some really strong, successful outcomes in my life. But to stand here on the 19th floor of the BB&T building and present to you all this morning, in order to really understand the significance of what you're seeing, you have to understand where I started out at. And I started out right here in East Winston, North Carolina. And I was born on Liberty Street, prostitution right outside of my house. My next door neighbor was a crack dealer. I've seen people get shot, I've seen people get beat and stabbed, all in my very front yard. I have been exposed to some things that children should not be exposed to. So when you consider where I started off in life, and then you consider where I'm at right now, it's a no matter what it takes attitude. It is 110% commitment to excellence. And you have to have a no matter what it takes attitude. You cannot be willing to accept failure. So if you're waking up in the morning and you're fighting with yourself for whether or not to keep your commitments or stick to your principles, then guess what? You're not committed. Once you have made a commitment, it should be a non-negotiable thing. It should be no going back. And the reason why this is so important, and I stress this principle, is because once you have this 100% commitment, when I woke up this morning, it was 5 a.m., I did not wrangle with myself on whether or not I needed to get out of bed. I did not wrangle with myself on whether or not I needed to take some time and pray this morning and thank God for giving me the gift of life. I did not wrangle with myself on this. I got out of bed. I knew I had to be here this morning to deliver a word to all of you, and I was committed to that. And when you are committed to something, it frees up a lot of energy. How many in the room expend so much energy with internal conflict? Trying to make a decision. Well, am I going to do it? Well, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Well, are you committed? And if you're committed, it frees up a lot of that energy so that you can start taking that energy and actually using it to create successful outcomes. How many of us in this room has been through a major change in the last year? I know for me a major change has been gas prices. So, I mean, that's been a dramatic change. But how many of you have been through a major change in the last year or so? That's about the entire room, almost the entire room. Now, how many of us can remember a change that we feared, but it eventually brought forward benefits? Once again, that's about the entire room. And that leads me to the third principle, which is embrace change. Change is inevitable and unavoidable. We see constant changes in our economy, in our technology, in the way we do business, and how we communicate with one another. And we all have a choice to make. And if you'll notice, as I've made my way through this presentation, I've talked about choices, because that's what all this is about. It's your choice. It's not my choice. There's a million books out here about success. There's a million books out here about leadership. You can read all the books or strategies you want. It all comes back to the choice that you make daily with how you practice your behavior. So we all have a choice to make about change. We can either choose to embrace it, cooperate, and adapt, or we can choose to resist it, which means we'll get swept away by it. And that's a big choice. And change in our lives typically presents some type of a growth opportunity. You know, you look at industries out here. The railroad industry was an industry several decades ago. They did not look at themselves as an industry that was about transportation. They looked at themselves as a railroad industry. And look what happened over several decades. You had car companies that came out and made tons of money selling cars and selling automobiles. But if these same railroad companies, the same companies that were innovators of transportation, if they would have looked at themselves as transportation companies, if they would have embraced change, they still may be the leaders of the day when it comes to transportation. So you have to be willing to embrace change. You know, when you look at our manufacturing industry, and you look at the changes that we've seen right here in North Carolina in our manufacturing industry, and there are a lot of people hurting because of that. But I'm here to report it's because they didn't embrace change. They actually thought that they could pull that lever for the next 30, 40 years. They didn't keep their skills sharp. They didn't go out and get the knowledge that they needed to get so that they could compete for the jobs of the future. You know, I do a radio show. I know some of you probably have heard it. I do a radio show, 97.1, and we were talking about NAFTA. And I had a young lady call in, and she was pretty upset because she felt like NAFTA had stole her job. Well, that goes right back to 100% responsibility. NAFTA didn't steal your job. You gave your job away. You gave your job away the moment you chose not to keep your skills sharpened and your knowledge heightened. You gave your job away. And the reality of it is, here in America, and I told her this that day on the radio, here in America, we used to have a very vibrant wagon-making industry. We used to make wagons with the best of them here in America. Well, we don't make wagons anymore, people. So those people had to learn how to make something new. We used to make typewriters right here in the United States. We had one of the greatest typewriter manufacturing industries ever seen. Well, we don't make typewriters anymore. We make computers, and those people had to adapt. They had to embrace change, and they had to change with it. So just remember, you have no control over change, but what you do have control over is your response. You have control over your response. As events happen in your life, you can choose a different response, and that's how you get a different outcome. You have to respond to the events that are happening in your life, and that's how you get different outcomes.